Alrighty.
All right, guys. Welcome to another edition of Disciples Above Disability, guys. My name is Derek, and I am joined tonight by my good friend Paul, or in other words, Darth. And tonight, our theme, or what we're going to be talking about, is the turtles, guys. We're both shellheads. TMNT is our theme for tonight. My name is Derek, guys. If you're new here, I am a legally blind gamer. And Paul, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
And I'm Darth, and I am a autistic ADHD dyslexic gamer.
And together, we are the Disciples Above Disability, guys. This is a series where we kind of talk about how we see God in pop culture, video games, and all kinds of different things. And we just kind of talk about how games have helped us through our disabilities, helped us through life, and just the joy of what we like in this life. So sit back and relax. And if you guys want to jump in the chat, let us know how you see God in the turtles or how the turtles have helped you in your life. And we'll get her going here. So, Darth, how did you get introduced to the Ninja Turtles?
I got introduced to the turtles through my cousin Sean, and you'll hear a lot about that in our stories going forward. Sean or my mom? This time it was Sean. I had no clue who the Ninja Turtles were, didn't even know they existed. And I remember he told me about them one time, and I don't remember how old I was, but I remember my mom telling me one time a story about how I kept asking her about Ninja Turtles. She he didn't know what I was saying. And so we went to Kmart, and shout out to anybody who remembers Kmart.
Oh, man.
So we went to Kmart, found the VHS of the first episode, that premiered on for them, and popped it in and got introduced to the Turtles. Didn't know who to like at the time, uh, but eventually I landed on Raphael.
And there's a kind of a was a story behind that. You kind of landed on Raphael after you liked first. Was it Mikey? Is who you liked first?
Yes, because my cousin Sean had was talking to me on the phone. I think my Aunt Beck had called first, but we were talking on the phone, and he asked me, "What turtle do you like?" And I felt pressured, so I just picked the first turtle I saw, and it was Mikey. And and he told me that was the one he liked. And complicated story aside, we typically liked separate things, so I went ahead and picked the next one I saw, which was Raph, and that was the one I grew up liking.
Isn't that funny?
Yep.
I kind of had a similar story. I initially liked Mikey too. I think probably most kids, if you grew up in that time period, that late 80s, early 90s, Mikey was the fun one. He was
Mm.
the one that was probably most appealing to a kid. So I liked Mikey, and I bought a figure of all things of Michelangelo, and got it into the car and didn't even really get very far from the store and realized that one of the legs on it was broke. And so I had to
Oh,
take it back, and they didn't have another Michelangelo. And so I got Leo. And then after I got Leo, I kind of took to him. He was the leader and the responsible one. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that leadership role and taking charge kind of was appealing to me. And I was a Leo guy and have been a Leo guy ever since. So it's kind of funny how both of us landed on the turtles that we didn't initially pick.
yeah. So, yep.
But
And I've always been indecisive between the two since then. It's like, I still like Raph because, you grow up liking a turtle and he kind of has a special place in your heart. Like
yeah,
like you talked about with Leo. But now that all that stuff is behind me in my childhood, it's like I'm able to decide which one I really like, and I do really do like Mike, and I think a lot of people like Mikey a lot because, like you said, he's the fun one. He can be funny. He's you know the adrenaline junkie because he's always doing all the extreme sports like stuff, usually, and depending on which cartoon series you like, he's the one that introduces pizza to everybody. So
That's right.
so
Yeah.
Mikey's he's a good turtle to like if he's your favorite, and but Raph will always have a special place, even if at times I don't feel like you know I relate to Raph because he likes to go out on his own and do his own thing. He's got that temper. You know.
Yeah, and Raph was kind of like the snarky one, the brooding, and
Yeah.
even in the cartoon, he's always kind of the witty, wisecracking one, at what they say,
Yeah, the
and
sarcastic one.
yeah, sarcastic. Yeah. So, as an adult, I could definitely see the draw to Raph because he has that adult sense of humor.
Mm.
Um, but Don probably gets the most shaft by every. Most kids
Oh, I
didn't like
know.
Donatello unless you were a person that liked purple, like my wife Brandy.
Yeah. Or my
That's
mom.
my, yeah, or your mom. That was probably a girl thing. They probably took to Don because of the purple.
Yeah. And I kind of feel sorry
Um,
for Donatello too.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, Corey Feldman actually did. He's actually one of my absolute favorite characters in that first Turtle. The banter between him and Casey Jones is absolutely classic.
Yeah. And
Uh, but they all have their good traits. Don was the smart one, and without him, they would be in a bind, wouldn't know what to do.
mm,
Uh, so they all have their unique role to play as they are a family. And speaking of family, we could truly see, the godly takeaways. We got to talking about this show before we went on, and we both were kind of on the same track with the family takeaway from the Turtles, especially that 1990 original movie.
mhm.
And Darth, why don't you tell them what takeaway, as far as a godly takeaway, you had from the first Turtles movie?
Hmm. Well, my takeaway from it was that, you know, they are a family. I mean, even if we wanted to think about it on the Shredder side, I mean, even the Shredder, you know, says that he was their father, right?
Right,
And so it's like the godly takeaway I would get from it is that, just to speak on the other side of things, that's what sometimes the enemy does to other people, you know. He convinces them
yeah,
that, he's all that that person needs. I mean, he's the father of lies after all.
right,
And so, he will lie and, he'll even bless you with things like the Shredder did with the Foot Clan, He was giving them a home, letting them do whatever they want. They were living in their own little paradise. But what they didn't realize was that they were doing things wrong, you
right.
know?
Yeah, that always kind of, is an eerie takeaway when you look at the gospel account of Luke in the Luke, the fourth chapter, when Christ is being tempted by the devil, when the devil takes him up on the highest mountain and shows him all the kingdoms of the world. Only in Luke's account do we get the takeaway where the devil says, "And all of this is given unto me, and I give it to whom I will."
Hmm.
And so that shows you his power in this world to try to convince us that, earthly things, material things is the way to go, and that's what you truly should want. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's a good point, bro.
Yeah, and something else I was going to share was that, there are a lot of times that the devil will put you in a prison of material things so you won't see God.
Right.
And then speaking on the
Yeah.
other side, Master Splinter, he, is, I guess in this sense he's like God because he truly cares for his sons, you know, and he was even willing to sacrifice himself, which Jesus did for us.
Right. Yeah, that we like I said, we was talking about this episode before we got going, and uh, Paul chose the line from the movie, the 1990 movie from Casey Jones, where
Hmm.
he's down there, and then he says, you call this a family, and that down there a family,
Hmm.
And it really made those kids think, those teenagers think at the time, like, yeah, this isn't a family. What is this?
Right.
And along the same lines, with the family, I my takeaway from it, I always think of the 1990 Turtles movie with Master Splinter, when Danny's talking to him, and Splinter asks him, do you have a father? And he says yes, and he says, but he could care less about me, and he says, I doubt that's true. And he said, why? And he says, because all fathers care for their sons. And that's exactly what the Bible tells us. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 7 says, casting all your cares upon him because he cares for you.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I watch that 1990 movie now with the Christian worldview, I can't see anything but that when
Yeah.
Splinter says that famous line.
Yeah. And if you want, speaking of fathers, why don't you share a little bit about your father?
Oh yeah, well, I could not have asked for a better dad in this life. My dad was a second generation preacher himself, and so I grew up with a godly view basically my entire life. And I had a dad that was really, pretty cool with things. He would introduce me to video games. Basically, he had an Atari 2600
Oh,
that I
wow.
played on a 13-inch TV when I was probably about 5 or 6.
Old
And
school.
that's where I got started with games. And then, of course, with all the Sega Genesis, that was where he really got into things. And he would pop in. He'd work all day, and maybe our paths would only cross for a couple hours a night. You guys know what that's like if you had a parent that worked all day.
Mm.
And basically, I would see my dad enough to be able to eat a meal and, have a little conversation with him. And then it was pretty much time to go to bed for school the next day. Um, but, I'd be in my room, maybe playing Street Fighter 2 or something. And he would take the time to pop in and play that game with me. And I never forgot that. And I'm sure you're the same way with your mom and things. You never forget a parent's love. And
No.
in the Turtles movie, when Splinter was able to talk to him through that flames, they all started crying and things like you. A parent is especially dear to you, going into these holidays. It means even more when you've had a good Christian parent in your life.
Yes. Well, that's
And
awesome, bro.
I know from the stories I've heard about your mom, she was truly awesome as well.
Oh yeah, my mom, like much like your dad, I saw my mom at the end of the day, and we play video games together, and she got me into playing video games, which I told that story before, and she even, would play her own video games separate from me down the road, back when we get to the PlayStation side of the generation. She was the one that got me into role playing games because that was her favorite, with role playing games.
Oh wow.
So,
Yeah, Dad and me were fighting game guys. That's probably why I still like them to this day.
yeah,
Yeah, isn't
and
that funny how you take that stuff away?
oh yeah, and well, and
Yeah,
to share about my father. Um, to be honest, I don't know much about my father. To let everybody know here, my father left me and my mom before I turned 1.
oh wow.
So I know it's not gonna, smear my father on this thing, but just let you know I didn't grow up with my father. But that didn't mean that God abandoned me with not having a man in my life, and I did have my grandfather.
Sure.
And my grandfather, he and my grandmother were, committed, loving Christian people. I grew up like you, bro, in a Christian household with them and my mom, and was at church a lot. Didn't understand it, but I was at church a lot.
Yeah, oh yeah, as kids we
Yeah,
don't understand it a lot.
and and my unfortunately, my grandfather didn't get into video games. He actually didn't understand why we like video games so much, but we did other things together. He taught me other things. He don't know if I should share this if it be too vulgar, but just to clean it up a bit, he taught me how to pee outside. And
Oh, rite of passage for every young kid,
yes, and
especially a boy.
right,
Uh,
and I'll tell you a funny
uh,
story. Uh, one, this is when we were living on dry bones, right? And
yeah.
my grandparents and my mom were entertaining some people from church, and I was outside playing, and there was a window right there that you could look outside right at the porch, right? And I was playing with the hose because that was one of the fun things to do was play with the hose. And my grandfather could see this stream of water just shooting straight up off the porch, going down to the ground. They thought I was peeing off the porch. So my grandfather was like, Lynn, look what your son's doing. And my mom was like, well, you taught him to do it, you know. So, and so my mom popped out there and saw me playing with the hose, and she went, "It's okay, it's just the hose," you know. So, but yeah,
uh,
those are fun times, you know.
yeah. Oh, I just realized we have been joined by a Thundercat, or in other words, Rosie. So, Rosie, if you're still there, I'm sorry I missed you in the chat a little earlier. We're glad to have you on this episode of Disciples Above Disability. And feel free to share anything about yourself if you want to in the chat.
Or ask
Paul?
questions.
Yeah, there you go.
But hey, Rosie, how you doing?
So, as far as, we talk about being disciples above disability, he's autistic gamer, among other things. I'm
Mm-hmm.
legally blind. So, how did the turtles kind of relate to you being, autistic, and I'll go first being legally blind? Again, it's one of those things in life where I always related to Outcast. If you kind of followed the turtles throughout the comic books and even the movies and even probably the cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
they being mutants were kind of outcast, kind of like along the lines of the X-Men. And being a kid that was legally blind, I always could relate to that because I was different. When you went into school, you were different from the other kids and they kind of treated you differently at times. And so I always related to that outsider mentality, like the X-Men or the Turtles. People didn't understand them, and it's kind of the thing that goes along with life. People fear what they don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was a strong thing that drew me to the Turtles, to X-Men, and even to Batman, who had to hide in the shadow. Things like that. Was that like that for you?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I was an outcast too because I was different. You know, I was in special education. So,
Yeah.
all the other kids, treated me more differently because, well, I won't use the words they told me, but, they treated me different. They teased me. And,
Right.
when the Ninja Turtles came into my life, I hit it hard. You know, it was one of the first phases of American culture that autistically I obsessed over. Because nothing else really hit me that hard. It was like, I got into it, I liked it, but the ADHD kind of kicks in and goes, okay, moving on to something else. I still like it, but I'm moving on to something else.
Right.
And Turtles, I hit that hard. I mean, we can get into the other stuff a little bit later, but I think for me, the Turtles helped me relate because it helped to kind of open up doors to uh, of having a similar interest with other kids.
Yeah. It gave you
Because
something in common.
yeah, because there was and I don't remember why we bonded, but there was a kid who was the cousin to one of my bullies, and we were both in the same special ed class, and we became friends. And I think it was through Turtles, could have been through something else, but we became friends. And stuff like that was always amazing to me that somebody who picked on you could be your friend over something as common
Right.
as turtles. And I think that's why
Yeah.
Turtle Mania was so cool because everybody could like the turtles and everybody could be friends.
It brought people together, that
Yes.
wouldn't maybe normally talk, and that's kind of awesome with the medium that we're doing here, gaming and God and things like that. It brings people together
Oh yeah.
and that maybe normally wouldn't be. And yeah, it's truly awesome when you come across those moments in life. It doesn't happen very many times, but when you come across a common interest with people that brings you together, it's truly awesome.
Oh yeah.
And
And
speaking about spiritual family, that's what you have. A lot of folks will say, why would you want to go to church? I mean, it's Sunday, it's my only day off. It's uh, my time, I got to catch up on things around the house. Why would I want to go to church and sit with a bunch of people that, you know, I normally wouldn't talk to, things like that. But when you get there and you start hearing the Word of God and how it changes your life, you'll get a whole new perspective on things and you start appreciating things more. Folks will go to, maybe counselors or look for self help books, things like that. And they look for answers. They want the reason for a purpose in their life. Why are they here? Uh, and, God gives you that family, that spiritual family, your brothers and sisters in Christ. And that's a truly awesome feeling. A lot of people today would feel like if they died tomorrow, maybe no one would care. And what a horrible thing that is.
mm,
But when you're in a church or part of a church family and part of a Christian family, you know that you could pick up the phone at any time and know that those people care about you and they're going to try to do anything to help you. That's a true blessing. God not only gave us the hope of eternal life through his son on the cross, he gave us a family.
yeah, he did. And I mean, yeah, you don't have to feel like you're alone when you're part of a church family.
Yeah.
Even though
Well, that's,
I was gonna say, even though sometimes we still do.
oh, yeah, we all have down moments in life,
Hmm.
but it's nice to know that you have people that do genuinely care and even God, casting all your cares upon him for he cares for you. To know that somebody, you are noticed, you are loved, and somebody always cares about you. That's a comforting feeling that you can't get in this life a lot of times, and you have that with God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So I'm gonna put you on the spot, bro. We're on turtles, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what is your favorite Ninja Turtles video game?
ooh, video game. That that is on the spot.
Rosie said hello.
Hello, Rosie. Thank you.
So if you had to pick, what would your favorite be?
Oh wow. Because there are three that come to mind,
Well, we
but
could cheat. We
we
could cheat. We could
we
do what is your Mount Rushmore? You get to pick four. Four
yeah.
turtles, four games. All right, go, bro.
Uh, no, I
Your
want
Mount Rushmore of turtles.
I want the challenge. I want the challenge. Let's see. Well, I definitely got to pick Turtles in Time on the Super NES.
SNE. Okay. To
But
my shame, I never played that growing up.
that's okay. You you got a pretty good one in Hyperstone Heist. That's a
Yeah.
pretty close game to it. So,
Yeah.
um, and then I definitely gonna have to pick Shredder's Revenge.
Ooh.
'Cause that is a really great game, and they keep improving it too. So,
Yeah.
uh, and then I probably would have to pick the original arcade game for three.
Which we got rolling in the background right now as we
Yep,
talk.
and hopefully one day you and I will get a chance to rattle around in that game together.
Yeah, we will.
And as for the last pick, I probably would pick tournament or Turtles Tournament Fighter on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that's good. That's there you go. I like. I grew up as a Sega kid, but for whatever reason, I prefer the SNES version of Tournament Fighters.
Yeah,
I
because
like the fact that you could play a Shredder, and it was really cool.
yeah, the
All right, my Mount Rushmore of Turtles. I would have to go, like you said, I being a Sega kid, I grew up with Hyperstone Heist. And I know everybody will say, oh, it's just a lesser version of Turtles in Time. Well, to me, it was my Turtles in Time.
mm,
So I didn't know any different, but I have a soft spot for that game still to this day. So that would be my favorite. The Arcade 89, which we got rolling, that's my number two. Uh, Number three, now that I have got to play Turtles in Time, I would probably put it at number three, and I also would put Tournament Fires for the SNES at number four.
oh, that's a good
That was
pick.
pretty cool. That was kind of hard to do on the spot there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure I originally came to the Turtles through the cartoon. I was nothing special at all. I came through it through the cartoon and then led to the movies, which led to the figures, which led to the games, and led to me talking to you guys about Turtles today.
Yep. And yeah, and I started with the cartoons, which led to the toys, which led to the video games, which led to the movie, which led to me talking to you
There you
guys.
go. And I never read the comics. To my shame, I've never read the 80s comics of the Turtles. I heard they were pretty dark, though.
Yeah, me neither.
The
I never read the comics either.
Later on, they became kind of what the cartoon was, but that original run, those black and white comics, I
Hmm.
think it was kind of gritty and underground for the time.
Yeah, and
Uh, so I couldn't tell you on that, but overall, through all the games, through all the movies, the toys, the cartoons, we have led to us and our liking of the turtles to this day. And these two shellheads have been glad to be able to talk to you again on this episode of Disciples Above Disability. Any final thoughts, bro?
nope. I just
All right. All
wanted to
right. Well,
say
then you
that.
guys, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna just add in, what matters to you matters to God.
There you go. I thank you guys so much. We do, both of us, these two disciples above disability. From the bottom of our heart, we truly appreciate every time you join us. We hope you like these episodes. If you do, and you're watching on YouTube on Poetically Christian, hit the subscribe button along with the bell icon, and you'll be alerted the next time we make another episode of Disciples Above Disability, along with all of our godly content. And if you're watching on Twitch, don't be shy, guys. Jump in that chat, hit the follow button on Poetically Christian Gamer, and you can be a part of the next Disciples Above Disability. This is a place for faith and fun, a channel for everyone, guys, and we want to hear from you as well. We thank you so much. Remember always, just like Splinter said, all fathers care for their sons. God tells us as well to cast all our cares upon him because he cares for us. All fathers care for their sons. From these two shellheads, guys, we hope to see you in the next one. We love you. God loves you. And bless wishes.